We're jumping right into our big story tonight. 7 days from right now, we're going to start getting election results from across the country for the presidential election, but also from Portland's first ever election that features ranked choice voting. And unless you're a rocket scientist, the actual tabulation of that ranked choice vote is pretty darn confusing. It certainly was to me. So I've studied it, and I'm going to help you. We're going to take a lot of time tonight explaining all the ins and outs of it. First, let's take a look at how it will work when we're voting for just one winner. In the city of Portland, that means we're voting for the mayor and the auditor. The threshold to win is 50% of the vote plus one. While there will only be one winner, you can rank up to 6 candidates on your ballot, but you only get one first place vote, one second place vote, etc. All right, here's how it works. This is a test ballot on the City of Portland website. I'm picking candidates at random. Okay, now that I've ranked 6 candidates and my ballot is ready, watch how this works. The candidate with the fewest votes gets eliminated each round. Any votes for that candidate are then shifted to those voters' next choice. And that can happen multiple times in what are called rounds. Do you see the candidates disappearing from the bottom there? And the election folks, they know how many people have voted, so they know the number needed to have 50% of the vote plus one. That's where that dashed line is out there to the right. And they keep running these scenarios, these rounds, until there is a winner. And here, that winner is animals in the pool. But it is interesting, isn't it, to go back and look at the very first round. Check it out. Animals in the pool actually came in third in that very first round. But as the rounds went on, more and more people had voted for them as their second, third, fourth place choice. And that ultimately is how they won. So that's how it's going to happen with a single winner like the mayor or the auditor. Same basic concept holds true for multiple winners. For the city council race in the city of Portland only, there's going to be 12 total winners. So that's 3 from each of 4 different districts. In the ranked choice voting tabulation, they will only compete against candidates in their own district. It's called multi-winner ranked choice voting if you want to impress your friends. Figuring out those 3 winners is similar to the single winner, but it's also a bit more tricky. So I turned to an expert with the city of Portland, James Eccles, who started talking about the differences between the single winner system, like the mayor's race, and the multi-winner system, like the council race.
You know, the first thing is that the difference, instead of being over 50%, so 50% plus one, our threshold is dropped down to 25% plus one. So that's what each candidate, we're electing 3, that's what each candidate's going to need to get to. The reason this number is selected is this is the lowest number that you can get, where you will elect 3 candidates, but you'll never mathematically be able to elect a 4th. If we have 3 people who each are at that threshold, it's now mathematically impossible for us to suddenly end up with a 4th person with enough votes. The reason you keep it low is because when we, part of this, and I'll actually get into this a little bit later with a hypothetical that we use, but multi-winner ranked choice voting is also known as proportional ranked choice voting, because the purpose of it is to end up with sort of a proportionally representative candidate base. So your 3 candidates, you want them to be roughly proportional. And the lower that you have that number, so we could do, you know, theoretically, you could do something at like 30% and you would still get 3 candidates, but no more. But if you have the number lower, because of the way we transfer the surplus, which I'll get to in a second, it allows you to have a little bit more of a representative number when we look at that.
Okay, so again, to elect the mayor or auditor in Portland, they're only going to need to capture 50% of the vote plus 1, and it'll be done. With multiple winners, each will only need to get 25% of the votes cast plus 1. So a much lower bar there, to be clear. This next part is where it gets complicated, though, and you're going to see my confusion, but stick with me. We do get to an understanding.
So the next thing is we still, just like single winner, we eliminate the lowest. So in that first round, if we don't get to a winner, we're going to look at whoever was the lowest candidate, and then we're going to remove them, and their votes get transferred over to the next highest on those ballots. The big difference, and the one that we're going to spend time talking about, because this is what people tend to get confused, is the surplus votes. So that's where, if in the first round, as an example here, we can see candidate A got more votes than they needed to win. So they're well over that threshold that we talked about. So the first thing that we're going to do when we're tabulating this is we're going to take all of the votes that they got over that, and we're going to reallocate those so they're down, they have right at the threshold, and those are all going to go to the next highest choice. So if you got 100 votes and you only needed 50, you're going to end up with 50 as the winner, and 150 of those are going to shift to the others. Now,
okay, I have a question on that.
Absolutely.
on how do you decide which 50, because those would probably have different choices for each one of them.
Perfect. I'm glad you asked that. So basically, we are going to, when say 100 people voted for this, or we'll use the example we have here up on the screen. I'm going to walk through the sort of the equation that people hear that there's an equation involved and they immediately panic, but I promise you it's a very, very simple, 8th grade level algebra equation. So if you had 10,000 people vote for that person, we get a portion of all of those 10,000 ballots will stay with. So a percentage of your vote will stay with the winner that you elected, and a percentage of your vote will change to the second ranking or the next highest ranking, right? So it's some of your vote stays and some of your vote moves. Now, the equation to figure out how much of each ballot, of each vote that we shift over, is this simple equation you just see on your, what we call the surplus transfer value. And it's just candidates' votes minus the election threshold divided by candidates' votes. So if we say our threshold is 9,000, so that's that 25% plus one number that we talk about. If in our hypothetical election, you're at 9,000 votes, and this person, this hypothetical candidate, Shanae Smith, gets 10,000 votes in the first round of voting. So they are going to get elected. They've gotten enough. We know that. We need to transfer 1,000 votes off. They have 1,000 extra votes. So we take our equation and we say they were at 10,000. The threshold was 9,000. That gets us to 1,000. And then we divide that by their votes. And that's 0.1. So 0.1 or 10% of each of their votes will transfer.
Okay, so did you follow that? The concept blew my mind when I first heard it. It never occurred to me that my one vote could actually be split into fractions and then given to my second or even third choice. But even if it's 10% of a vote, those will add up as other percentages of votes get added into there as well. So, to put it another way, if a candidate gets more votes than they need to win, those extra votes become a percentage, and it's not like the elections office is deciding which whole votes to move to their second choice. Everybody who voted for them will have a fraction of their second vote go to their second pick. If you're still a bit confused, that's okay. I was too. Let's have James explain it a little bit more using one sample ballot.
It's helpful to look at it at the ballot level. So if you see up here, this is when we walk through a mock election. This is a platform we used as sort of an educational tool. So you'll see this is similar to the grid style ballot. It's just ice cream flavors, kind of have a something low stakes contest. But if on my ballot I had chosen chocolate as my first ranking, so chocolate is my favorite. They're what I prefer, and pistachio was my second choice. All right. If chocolate wins at our, they got 10,000 votes. So 10,000 other people ranked this chocolate as first. Me and 9,999 other people.
An appropriate vote, by the way.
Of course, a very popular one. Then my vote will, of all of those ballots, so we look at just my ballot, 90% of my vote will stay on chocolate, and 10% of my vote will go to pistachio. So if there are 9 other people who also ranked pistachio as second, then that'll equal one full vote. So 10% of a vote isn't enough to be an entire vote. But if you're shifting 10,000 ballots and there's 1,000 people that did this, 10% of that would be, there's 100 votes that get added because it's 10% of a vote times 10,000, or 1,000 in this case, in this example.
So that's another reason it's important to rank more than one person on your ballot. You can rank up to 6 in the Portland City Council races. So again, rank up to 6 people that you would be okay with being elected in the order that you prefer, because even ranking that 6th candidate could have an impact here. And even though a fraction of your vote might move to your lower rankings, it will never become more than just one vote when all those fractions are added up.
The most important fundamental part here is that one person gets one vote. So we're never going to change that. So even though your vote gets shifted to somebody else and it does more work for you, it's never going to go over 100%. Your vote never becomes more powerful than somebody else's. Everybody gets one vote. But in this case, your vote's simply being split between a winner and then it moves on to someone else. And the reasoning behind doing this is twofold. One, if we didn't do this at all, if you just allowed the votes, you only did like what we do, a single winner, it would be simpler. But you could end up with a situation where chocolate as is likely, is very, very popular. And maybe 80% of your voting base chooses chocolate as their number one choice. That means only if you don't move away their surplus, only 20% is left over to vote. So no one else, no other flavor of ice cream can ever get above that 25% threshold. So you'll never get enough votes to get to the threshold that we've laid out. And you basically don't have an even election. So we need to unlock those votes that are for the winners because we have multiple winners here. So that's why we need to shift those votes.
Hopefully you're still with me here. I know we are deep in the weeds, but you're going to know this stuff better than anybody you know. All right, we're talking about ranked choice voting for the Portland City Council, where there will be 3 winners in each district. If a winning candidate gets more than what they need, more than 25% plus 1 vote, the computers will calculate how many extra votes they got. Let's say they got 10% more than they need. Next, the computers will look at everyone who voted for that candidate and give their second choice 10% of a vote. Why make it so complicated? Why not just say, okay, candidate A, you won in the first round. Now we're taking you and your voters out to see who wins in the next round. Our expert says that's because this is not done because a majority party would still win. And the idea behind ranked choice voting is to elect candidates from a variety of groups.
The reason that we do it this way relates to the proportionality of the vote. It's the proportional part of proportional ranked choice voting. And I think the easiest way to understand why this happens mathematically and why it's important is to use a hypothetical here that I'll sometimes use. And that's, imagine a voting district, and in that voting district, 60% of those voters will always vote for party A. They will always vote for party A no matter what. And 40% of those voters will always vote for party B no matter what. They are always going to vote for party B. Doesn't matter, it might be different candidates, but it's always going to be 60% party A, 40% party B. Now, if you run separate single choice elections, or if you run a multi-winner election, but then do it just restart over, the majority will always be able to get their candidate. So if you go with 3 candidates, you'll end up with 3 candidates that are from party A because they can always get to that majority required. In this system, because the votes get locked in a single election, 25% will get a party A candidate as we expect. 25% will get a party A candidate again as we expect. But now that last 10% is not enough to elect a third candidate. So that party B, those supporters, will get their option. So you end up with a split of candidates that is about 66% party A and about 33% party B, which roughly matches the representation of that community. And that is really the result that proportional ranked choice voting is trying to get to, that you simply can't do with either single choice or single winner RCV. And so that's the difference. Sometimes people ask us, like, why go through all this complication? But that's the goal, is to get that representative candidacy.
So there you have it, a deep dive on multi-winner ranked choice voting, soon to be unveiled for the first time here in the city of Portland. And if you're still scratching your head, it's okay, you're not alone. We're all sort of learning this as we go along together. In the meantime, what are your takeaways? Do you understand it better now? Are you more confused? I hope not. Let us know, though, your thoughts, will you? Send us an email. The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090.